So, Bryan, tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend.
My name is Bryan Garra. I live in the Akron-Cleveland area of Ohio. I have been in real estate for 7 years.
Okay.
And I don't know if you actually knew this, but before I met you, had I not come to your event last January, I probably would have quit real estate.
Really?
Yeah. I was so burnt out.
Okay.
In 2021, I did 100 deals. The following year, I dropped down to like 32 deals because I was so burnt out. I wasn't happy. It wasn't sustainable what I was doing.
Yeah.
And to be honest, you kind of taught me the way to do it sustainably.
Yeah.
And so thank you for having me
cool.
be here for that. Yeah.
I'm glad you're still with us.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can clap for that. So you had a pretty massive jump in production, which is why you're up here, my friend. In 2022, you closed 34 units for $4 million, which, listen, we can relate. I mean, you hear these numbers, Detroit and Cleveland. I mean, it's like one and the same in terms of average sales prices. 34 units for $4 million, and last year you had 73 units closed for $7.6 million in volume. So you more than doubled your production in 1 year. That's huge. That's huge. In a down year. So obviously, because of our average sales price, we still got to sell more homes next year, my friend. All right. So talk to me. What changed? How did you go from 34 to 73 in 1 year?
I'm definitely going to credit it to your 100 house a year schedule that you actually provided last January.
Really? Would you say there's probably several things, but is that just the first thing that comes to mind because we just talked about it, or is that for sure for you the number one thing?
That is what got me started in the year. It's what got my habits right. It's what made me realize that if I want to be a top producer again, these are the things that I actually need to do. And obviously the things that I did during those activities were what were important. But I think actually getting down, realizing that discipline is step one. Owning the morning, doing these things in the morning. It was so important.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you look at the schedule that I just shared then, how does it vary from your current schedule? Or what does your current morning look like?
Very different than that now. It actually gave me PTSD seeing you write it out again. Because it's true. If you follow it.
Yep. Yeah.
If you follow it, you will do those deals.
You will. But why do agents not follow it? Why do you think they hesitate to follow it?
Because it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of faded off of that because I realized, and you've really done a good job of helping me figure out why, I didn't need 100 houses to live my unreal life.
Yeah.
And so I realized I am not happy doing Jeff's 100 house a year schedule.
Yep.
I actually scaled it back.
Yeah.
I sleep in a little bit more, but one thing that I do on a consistent basis that is, I think, the most important thing is picking up the phone, being in my CRM, and following up.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. One of the reasons for your average sales price is because you work with a lot of investors. So tell us how you got started with investors, because some people will look at the numbers and say, well, 73 units, 7.6 million, there's nothing sexy about that. That sounds like a lot of work. See, that they're laughing because that's what they were thinking.
Yeah, it's a low amount.
However, working with investors in a market like Seattle or in Dallas or in, suburb of New Jersey or something like that, the average sales price, 3, 4, 5, 600,000, it might actually make sense to work with investors. So talk to us how you got started with that source of business, because that's your number one source, right?
Yeah, that is my number one source of business.
So talk to us about that.
Investors kind of just fell into my lap. When I first got started, I jumped onto Zillow. I bought the cheapest zip codes I could.
Yeah, which by the way is something we actually recommend to agents. If they're looking to pick up more buyer business, don't go buy the expensive zip code, buy the lower end zip code. The ROI is higher, and you got people there that will very much value your help.
Absolutely, and that is, I think, what really empowered me to teach people. Not only was I getting investors, but I was getting people who maybe their parents or their family have never owned a home.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily about investors in the beginning. It was about educating, empowering, and assisting any and everyone I came across. In that, through those repetitions, not only did I get to help families buying their first $50,000 house, but I'd also get all kinds of calls from first-time investors all over the country. And I take just as much time to teach them how to break down a deal, how to find a deal, is I take time consulting with a homeowner who wants to live in it.
Yeah. Two things I like about the low-end sales is, number one, because there's not a lot of agents that work the lower price point. And again, it's all market relative, right? So if the average sales price in your market is $600,000, well then the low end is probably $250 or $300, right? If the average sales price in your market, like it is mine and it is in Cleveland, is if it's somewhere between $250 and $300, then yeah, you're going to have some $50,000 to $100,000 houses. What's nice about that business is those investors who owned those homes, guess what they see on every closing? Who the other agent was on the other side of the transaction. I need to talk to this guy. He keeps bringing buyers to all my properties. Maybe I should be listing with him.
The relationships I actually have are amazing in the city of Akron that I live in.
Yeah.
I get calls before things are listed from property managers. Hey, Brian, I know you've got a buyer for this.
Yep.
Can we get it locked up so I don't have to list it? Property managers hate listing properties.
Yep. I love that. And not only that, but you know what else I love about working the low end? And again, it's all relative. Future business from that client is usually greater than working the high end, because the high end, it's probably their final house or one of their final homes, where the low end, you're going to be a part of transaction number 2, 3, 4, 5, for the next 20, 30 years, because they're now going to turn around and sell their first home, and then they're going to buy their second home, and then that one usually goes quickly because that's usually still a smaller home, right? Have you had a lot of that happen in your 7 years?
Yeah, I mean, I still have a few of the same clients that I did that year one. They've stuck with me, and what's amazing is once you take an investor through a certain life cycle, you may start out on inexpensive homes, single family homes, but eventually they grow and they need to sell all those, and now they want to buy multi-million-dollar buildings.
Yep.
So it's just that introduction is so important. Keeping them satisfied is really
So
important.
one other thing, because again, a lot of people kind of shy away from investors because they think it's a lot of work for a little pay. And when you look at units and volume again, man, it's not really a lot of money. You're charging minimum commission. So don't do the math and say 7.6 million times 3%. You're charging minimum commissions. So your actual GCI percentage-wise is actually a lot higher than what it would be on an agent at 7.6 million times 3%. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I know that the work that I do in teaching investors is something that's going to make them so much stinking money.
Yeah.
So that first initial call, I'm letting them, I'm asking about their goals, how did they get to this point that they're at, and I try to find the gaps of knowledge, and that's the time that I take to then fill in those gaps of knowledge.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what I'm going to do for you. This is how you break down a deal. I'm really filling in any gaps of knowledge, and I would really like to commit to working with you.
Yeah.
I do know how much my time is worth, and I understand that I'm going to be such a valuable resource for you.
Yeah.
And because of that, I do charge a minimum commission. Oh my gosh, Brian, that's it? We'll give you more if we need to.
Yeah.
If you really come with value, teach them something they don't know. And that was the key. They don't mind paying if you're giving them the value.
Yeah, and by the way, we wish we could give you specifics, but for obviously recent reasons of conferences talking about commissions, we've discussed not actually sharing the amount and how you do it. So if you want that one-on-one, I'm sure he'd be happy to tell you, but we know that this is being recorded and watched by others, so we're going to stay away from that. So talk to us about your open house plan, because, I'm sorry, I have one more question on investors. If I'm in the room right now, starting from scratch, day one, you know what? I see an opportunity in my market. Not a lot of agents are working with investors because they're afraid of them or this or that. What's the number one thing that I can do right now to get started? Not so much what you're doing, because I think there's a lot of people in the audience with all sources of business that say, well, of course, he's been doing it for 7 years. Well, of course, he's been doing it for 12 years. Well, of course, he's been working that database for a decade. I can't get that result tomorrow. And we all know it's not going to come tomorrow. But if I'm in the audience and I make a decision right now that I want to be known as the investor agent in my market, if you had to start all over again, knowing what you know now, your experience with Glover U, coming to events and hearing everything, where would you start?
Telling the more experienced agents in my office, hey guys, if you have anything that's far away from you, or maybe in a price point you don't want to work with, please keep me in mind.
Yeah.
I know so many agents that don't take any deals below 100,000. I'm their go-to guy for that exact reason. I'm okay taking them, and I think that's the key, is just letting the agents in your community know that you're okay working those things. And hey, I'll even give you a referral, because once you get them under your belt, you might pay a small referral fee, but they're going to be repeat buyers and sellers.
They are.
So just get them in your Rolodex.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good advice. Awesome. Good stuff. Let's hear it for Brian.